All right. And we're live. Welcome, everybody. Another episode of the Trade Life Podcast. I'm your host, Ian McFadden, and I have with me here today, Costa from JobTable. Costa, welcome. Thanks for making the time for us. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, JobTable, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it. My name's Costa Panagoulias. I am the founder of JobTable. JobTable is a software company. We help construction companies and trades simplify how they grow and manage their business in the most simple and comprehensive software on the planet.
Love it. So I met you guys at the Toronto Buildings Show. And I will say I was blown away with the simplicity of your platform. It's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the platform and continue talking to you. There's so many financial systems out there. Like there's so many products on the market. I love what you guys have done in terms of taking a really complex issue and creating sort of streamlined workflows that simplify it. Like as you were walking through it with me in the booth, the simplicity and how things sort of logically followed each other was incredible. I don't want to dive in too much on that. Like I don't want this whole podcast to turn into a advertisement for JobTable. I think everyone should definitely check out JobTable. But what I really want to do is talk about, in general terms, the need for systems and financial controls within a contracting firm. So to start this sort of podcasting journey, we've been sort of heavily focused on like a bit of an apprenticeship journey. And that's just kind of been by accident in the nature of the guests that we've had on. What I want to do now is turn to people that maybe they've gone through their apprenticeship, maybe not, maybe they've done 5 years of experience and they're saying, okay, I want to step out on my own now, right? Or somebody that stepped out on their own a year or two ago and they're just like having a tough time getting going, maybe for various reasons, but really for those people talking about how do we think about, not just how do we think about these systems and setting them up, but like, why do we need them? Right.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little about that. Let's start with why do we need them? Right.
Yeah, no, great
Why
question.
can't I just do this on Excel or a piece of paper?
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
It's so coming into this industry, dealing with a lot of construction companies, thousands of them all over the place. One thing that was abundantly clear to me is how interesting this industry is, in the sense of you have so many guys and girls who are so good at their craft and good at what they do, and like, great builders, great at electricians, plumbers, you name it. And then once they realize like they have the skills and qualities to go on their own and build a business, um, you're kind of hit in the face and you realize that now you have to perfect another craft, which is business, right? And that's half the battle, right? To have a successful business, you obviously have to be good at your craft, but you also have to be just as good on the business side. And that's where a lot of people fail, is not on the craft but on the business side. So having those proper systems and processes in place, like that foundation, is critical. Like you can't operate things on Excel and on your head and on your phone. Like we're humans, we make mistakes, and you need something simple to manage, to
Yeah.
track all that.
Totally. And that's, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that I really do want to kind of harp on a little bit, is that just because you are a great tradesperson does not mean that you're going to be a great business person. They are entirely separate skill sets. We are on Project Network. We're going to be building out a whole sort of foundational series that's going to touch on some of these things. From my just straight up anecdotal experience, the people that I've seen go out on their own that have not failed because they've been bad at their craft.
Yeah.
They have failed because they didn't have, I don't even want to say skills. There's there's an exposure, there's a learning, there's an education piece to what is necessary from a business standpoint. And then there's that sort of like specific constitution of character in terms of being able to manage the uncertainty, the risk. It's a different way of thinking versus going on site and installing pipe,
Yeah,
installing trim, laying brick, right? Like whatever your craft
totally.
is.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, just like, to learn a trade, you have to go, get experience, go to school, learn, get your hands dirty. The same philosophy applies with business. Like you got to learn the business, how to do sales, how to do accounting, marketing, what are P&Ls, balance sheets, how can data help me make better decisions? There's so much involved, there's so much nuance involved in that, and it requires a lot of learning, just how you learned and took years to learn your trade. Same thing applies to learning the business side of things,
Yeah,
right?
totally. So me personally, I did a red seal and carpentry, and came out of it and went out on my own. Prior to that, I actually did a post grad in accounting, right? So that
Okay.
that was my background. Even with that, when I came out and started my own business, the reality of payment timings, receivable aging, true job costing, right? Figuring out proper burden, like labor burden rates. It took years. I hate to say it, to like really figure it out. Because I came out with that background of accounting thinking, oh, I know how to do this. I didn't. Like I knew how to read a P&L and I knew how to read a balance sheet. Incredibly important skills if you're going to start a business. But there really is some of those sort of foundational skills in terms of needing to understand how to effectively price a job, which is obvious, right? Like you need to know how to price a job, but how do you even get to that point? Like how do you arrive at how to price a job, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like you're first starting out, how do I figure out how to make sure I've captured all my costs? Like, how do I
Yeah.
know what to charge somebody?
It's funny. I didn't know that about you. I actually I graduated from Ryerson with a degree in accounting as
Okay,
well. So,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so I did mine. I did an undergrad at Western for
okay.
kinesiology.
Yeah.
Useless,
Yeah.
unrelated. I spent 4 years partying and eating pizza and drinking beer. But then I did a post grad through the Certified Management of Ontario
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
No longer exists. It's now part of CPA. But
Yeah. No,
yeah,
it's funny. Even with my background in a like school background in accounting, that's all I did with it. But you learn like corporate accounting, like very high level stuff that like I can't remember like half the stuff I learned in there. But yeah, putting that to the side, coming back to your question, yeah, like it's so how to think about that, like you specifically with job costing, right? It's at the end of the day, I look at this, it's very logical in a way, right? It's like, a lot of people get caught up on the top line, like what is my revenue? To me, revenue, you could be making $1 million in revenue, but if you're profiting like, 40 grand, what good is that? I'd rather do 100 grand in revenue and profit, 60 grand. What's a better business just because you have the top line revenue? But it's that in between where a lot of people uh, get stuck and don't realize what they're actually making until their accountant comes in and slaps them in the face and, and they realize like, you lost money this year. You didn't make as much as you thought. And that's where, like you said, that's where a lot of businesses fail in a lot of cases because they just can't figure out the business. But yeah, it's logical. It's what's coming in versus what's coming out. That's a good starting point. Like you got to keep your eye on every, especially when you're starting out. You got to keep an eye on every single penny that's coming in and out of your bank statement. You gotta know that like the back of your hand.
yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah, and I love that because uh, I just want to alert everyone to this idea in accounting that there's two different ways of accounting for things. There's accrual based accounting, which is the proper way to do it, and it's how your accountant's going to do it, and it's how you have to do it for tax purposes. And then there's the cash based accounting. The cash basis is not the proper way to do it, and for any large business, it is not a good way to do it. Like it's just wrong. I would argue almost though, and Costa, I'm wondering if you agree with me here, that for a small business, it's probably the right way to look at it.
cash all the way,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Accrual, like for a small business, I still think they should run on a cash basis on their like day to day. And like if your accountant needs to convert that to accrual, then that's what they're paid for. But yeah, like accrual without getting into the weeds, like if you're operating on an accrual basis, like you don't really get a true sense of like the cash flow, like cash in, cash out. Like that's where that in my opinion, like as a small business, you gotta operate on a simple cash basis.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
more
like
accurate.
your insurance premiums are due. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your receivables are at 90 days aging and you can't collect.
Yeah.
Like they don't care about that. You got to pay your insurance people.
Exactly.
You got to make payroll every 2 weeks or whatever your payroll is running on. So I totally agree. I think running on a cash basis is critical. I think you definitely need an eye towards accrual accounting to understand what your true profitability is going to be. One of the things, and we can maybe share some anecdotes on this one. One of the things that I've heard a lot of people get in trouble with, and I knew about this. So even when I first started, I very deliberately made separate bank accounts, is fucking around with HST or tax, right? Sales tax. So in Canada, we have to charge, by law, you have to charge HST on everything. So the first thing is make sure you do that. If you're a small business, make sure you charge HST.
It's
When you
still like
charge
if you're
HST,
making over 30,000,
if you're
right?
making over
That's still,
30,000, yeah. Which in contracting, like it's going to be
yeah,
hard to not make over
yeah.
30,000. Collect HST. Costa, should I spend that HST money?
Okay. That's an interesting question. And, should you spend that HST money? Um, I can answer that in two ways personally. Look, if you want to be like conservative and, do things, eh, yeah, look, let me take a step back. Because I don't want to come across and make any like recommendations and suggestions and stuff. But yeah, like, look, I'll look at this two ways. One, if you do want to be like conservative, careful, do things, in a very, safe way, then yeah, like save that HST, don't touch it, and pay the government, when it's due. On the flip side, if you are playing in that gray area and you're like growth oriented, a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. So if you have that HST money, let's just say, in your bank account and it's ready and you can theoretically deploy that somewhere that's going to make you even more money, then, that could be a strategy as well, right?
Costa, you're getting controversial here already. I love it. We're gonna pull into okay. So I'm gonna say I strongly disagree with you for a small business owner, but I wholeheartedly agree with you for somebody that's financially savvy.
100%. Yeah.
And I think this is an important differentiation to make, and something that like if you're fully deployed on JobTable and you're using a really good financial system and you are financially literate, then yes, there are things you can do to deploy that capital, especially if you're on like annual remittances, right? So depending on the size of your business, and for American listeners, forgive me, I don't know how it works down there, but in Canada, there's thresholds. I can't remember exactly what they are, but when you're small and you start out, it's annual remittances. So you collect HST for the year, and then you have to pay whatever you owe minus deductions. It's a complicated, let's not even talk about that, but you will owe HST at the end of the year. Once you pass a threshold, you get to quarterly. Pass another threshold, you get to monthly. Hummingbird Hill Homes, the company that I co-founded, we're on monthly because we're of a scale where we have to do monthly remittances. The annual piece, fantastic point. Like if you can take that money, it's free money. You're basically borrowing from the government for free, right? If you can take that and you can earn 5 to 10%, right? Or if you can put it towards an equipment purchase, as long as oh man, I'm gonna
threw a curveball here, didn't
do
I?
not do this unless you know what the fuck you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
do not do it. If you really know what you're doing, this can be an okay strategy. Oh,
That's why I was hesitant to even like suggest it. But
you're like, I don't want to say no.
look, it's
But
like you
yeah,
go to school, you learn finance. It's like rule
yeah,
101. A dollar today is worth more than a
yes,
dollar tomorrow. So, if you just have this money in your bank account, like what and again, you got to be savvy. You got to like don't go spend that, go shopping or whatever. Like you got to deploy that very strategically, and you
yeah,
got to be smart with it. But
yeah,
yeah, I think if you have the savvy, if you're savvy enough, I think that's something to consider. Like, look, I'm not going to
yeah.
shy away from it.
I love it. I love it. There's early controversy on the financial side here. I so I think to wrap that up, because I don't want to, I want to, I want to basically make a blanket recommendation to anyone listening to this. Do not do this. Just don't do it. If you want to do it, talk to Costa. Talk to your accountant. As a blanket rule, if you want to use this money to make payroll, then you're fucked, and there's something different going on in your company, and you need to fix that other thing. The HST money or the tax money is not going to fix the fact that you can't make payroll, right? If you want to borrow from the government for free to invest in some growth oriented venture, right? Maybe you're expanding, maybe you're buying a new piece of equipment, and you have contracts, future contracts that can support that investment, then sure. But again, you get to the end of the year, end of the quarter, end of the month, whatever your payment schedule is. If you can't make these HST payments or these tax payments, you are fucked, right? And like big time. I heard a story before I went out on my own, and this is one of the things that kind of scared me into like just putting it in a separate account.
Yeah.
There was a guy, he was a neighbor of one of my really good friends. He ran, I think it was an electrical contracting business. And I don't know the whole story, but essentially what happened, he got so far behind on his HST, he ended up owing $1 million to the government of Canada,
Wow.
CRA. And he ended up serving jail time. It was something like they liquidated all his assets. He couldn't pay it all back. And because he had no money, they made him serve some jail time. It wasn't like a huge amount, like maybe a couple months or something like that. But the dude went fully bankrupt. He lost everything. Wife divorced him. The last that I had heard, and we're 10 years, 15 years back now, but the last I had heard about him way back then was he got out and he was living on the street. Like he
Wow. Yeah.
sewered his entire life because but again, this was $1 million. Like
Yeah.
there was something else
That's
going
extreme.
on there.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's why I want to like, as a blanket recommendation, I'm just
Hey,
going to like,
I'm not, like I said, I'm not recommending that either.
yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah. Like, yes. Okay. So I do like what you tossed out there though. And I don't want to dive into the weeds on that at all, but there are some advanced financial strategies that you can definitely consider. And there's a lot of different ways. And I think this touches on, and maybe we jump over here for a second. It touches on the sort of different mentalities of owning a business. And this is something that you really have to ask yourself when you're in these early phases is what's your goal for the business? When me and my partner, Aaron, started Hummingbird Hill Homes, we knew we wanted to grow, right? We didn't want to do $5-10 million of business. Our target was 100 million, right? Just blanket. And it's still to this day is 100 million. That's really big for a custom home builder. So we're not there. Like, I think we're like 40 or 45 million or something. But we knew we wanted to grow to that scale, right? We now employ 60 people, something like that. You don't get to that point by being conservative with everything, right? There are risks that you need to take along the way. And people interested in those risks, listen to the first 3 episodes. I ran into it in heavy detail. Almost went bankrupt at one point. I had to leverage $500,000 against my personal residence to save the company at one point. Like, there was some shit that happened, right? And that's, we don't want that to happen to other people. Like, we want other people that are growth oriented to listen to this and to learn some of these things and to invest in their financial literacy so that doesn't happen. And I say this as a really strong caution because I had financial literacy, but I didn't have the right type of financial literacy, right? And it took some really painful lessons to learn that, right? To your point, Costa, I had that academic literacy. I understood how to read financial statements. I understood theoretically how everything works. In theory, everybody pays you, right? What happens if your receivables are sitting at 60 days on average? What if they're at 90 days? What if they're 120? What if that big contract that's sitting out short pays you by 50 grand?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And this is where, specifically with construction, I think it's one of the trickiest industries in terms of cash flow management. Because think about it, this is the only industry that I could really think of where you have a project. In a lot of cases, you're fronting all the materials, you're buying everything, you're setting it up, you're doing the work, paying your labor, and then getting paid at the end. Like, what other industry is set up like that?
Yeah.
Like, there's really none.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that's where specifically cash flow management is so critical. Like, that is, if you got to prioritize like where to kind of hone in on, I would say like learn cash flow management and just be really good at Again, starting with the basics, like knowing exactly what's coming in and out of your bank account every month. What's your overhead every month, every week even. And so you don't get caught up because, yeah, in a lot of cases, you're not getting paid in 30, 60, 90, sometimes more days, right? So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's where a
exactly.
lot of people can get really screwed.
Yeah, and, understanding if you're dealing with holdbacks, what the holdback provisions are, um, what your expected date of receipt of those holdback funds are, right? So again, holdbacks being 10%. I think holdbacks are pretty broadly recognized, like across North America. Um, in Ontario, there's some very strict laws and legislation around it, how we deal with them. To your point, construction is a really weird industry in that the subs and the suppliers are essentially financing the project for a good chunk of it. Like if I'm a drywall sub on a big commercial project, exactly, I'm expected to front the bill for all the materials, all the labor, all that. I don't even get paid when I'm done. I get paid, what's the Prompt Payment Act? It works out to what, 45 days or 60 days or something?
I think it's you might be right. I thought it was 30 to be honest, but even that, like no one
Yeah.
really follows that.
That's prompt. That's
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
like that's considered quick payment.
Yeah.
And it's kind of bonkers. And then that holdback piece, that final 10% isn't, I forget that this might be 45. They change it every couple of years. I feel like that's either 45 or 60 days after date of substantial performance, right? So like it, you need to be able to float your company. You need to be able to pay your people. You need to be able to pay your suppliers until uh, like prior to you fully collecting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about some tools and some ways to think about setting up systems in order to plan this kind of stuff out in order to manage that.
I think as a like a core kind of tip or just characteristic to have is being frugal. There's no need to go out and lease that, expensive pickup truck for like 10% interest, right? Like that's, when starting out, like you got to be as lean and as frugal as possible. And again, coming back to like knowing what your expenses are, what I like to do, and I recommend this to everyone, is do an expense audit every couple months, every couple months, literally every single line item out of your credit card, your bank statement, and see like, do I need this expense? Can I downgrade it? A lot of times like you're on subscriptions and things like that, where maybe you're on a higher tier, you can bring that down because you're not using it. You'd be shocked at how much money you could save by just doing these expense audit. Every time I do it, like I'm saving the company 4 figures a month easily, you know especially nowadays more than ever, because there's so many tools and technology is just growing so fast right now, where there's a lot of tools that are popping up every single day, where and they're getting a lot cheaper. Like technology is very deflationary, so if you're like you've been using a tool, you're paying several $100s a month, let's just say. I guarantee you there's a lot of better tools today that probably do a better job that you can get for a fraction of the price, and that's like significant savings, right? But you can apply that across the board. I think that to do those regular audits is a big help.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Like being able to really and being able to look at yourself and look at your company and be really honest about the expenses. So talk to me quickly then about setting up really set so I want to go into like kind of POs, progress payments, all that kind of stuff. Like how does a new contractor ensure they get paid short of showing up with a baseball bat, right? Like how do we avoid the baseball bat?
First and foremost, you got to send invoices right away, especially in this industry. The faster you send an invoice, the faster you get paid. Can't tell you how many guys and girls, companies I still speak to every single day, who take like days, sometimes weeks, months to send an invoice because they're messy, they're sloppy, they don't have good systems in place. How hard, if you can go on Instagram every day, like go send an invoice, like take out your phone. If you have a good software, good system, you can literally send that invoice as soon as you're done the job, before you leave that house or that building, like from your truck. Send invoices as fast as you can, because right when you send it, the clock starts. If you're waiting a week to send an invoice, then you're not going to get paid in 30 days. It's 30 days plus that week that it took you to send the invoice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I assume so JobTable makes all this super easy, right? Like you're
Of
just on
course.
your
Yeah.
app, you can whip it out.
Yeah.
Um, and so you can manage your sort of progress draws. So
Yeah.
so here, let's do this. Let's start with you start with an estimate. You've got an estimate, you're sending it out, you get the job. What do we do
Okay,
from
so
there?
yeah, starting for even better. With JobTable specifically, there's when you're creating an estimate or a quote, there's an option where you can request a deposit. So most companies we work with, they ask for a deposit, which you should. I think that's another good strategy right there. Is like get a deposit, right? Whatever it is, 20, 30, 40. I see like 50, 70% deposit sometimes. Get a deposit. That not only helps your cash flow, but how we set it up in JobTable, when you create a quote, you can put your whatever deposit you want to request. When that quote gets approved, what happens? An invoice for that deposit amount automatically gets created and sent to the client. So you don't have to like go now calculate what the deposit is. That's instantly sent on approval. So again, the clock starts once that quote gets approved.
Awesome. Okay, so you don't even have to go in and say
No,
send deposit. It just automatically
it's
goes.
already sent on
That's
approval.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
now and does that are we now treating that as a PO, or are you thinking of a PO as something different?
No, that like I look at that as just that's an invoice. So if you're like a trade and you know you're doing a job, you sent a quote, that quote got approved. That deposit is basically like the first draw of that invoice of that project.
Yes. Okay. But your estimate has become the PO in this, so
Yeah,
that we can do
yeah,
progress
yeah,
draws against.
exactly.
Okay.
Off the line items on the quote.
Okay. So whatever we've negotiated in terms of payment terms, right? Um, we hit that first payment term mark, right? Whether it's percentage of completion or every 2 weeks or like whatever the structure is, we hit that. What do we do?
From there, like we made that process so simple. So the invoicing, specifically the progress billing side of things, in our software specifically, is probably the number one tool where we get a lot, or the feature where we get a lot of like positive feedback, especially for guys who are, again, are not the most financially literate, and you know they don't want to like sit down and calculate like what they build, what's pending, you know, and all that. So the way it's really as simple as um, you create an invoice, you're selecting the line items that from the quote, and how much you want to invoice those line items. So let's say a line item is like $10,000. You've invoiced 1,000 off that 10,000, so there's 9,000 remaining. So it just asks you, there's 9,000 remaining. What do you want to invoice? Do you want to invoice this in full, or do you want to do another partial draw of like, you know, whatever percent you include? So it's literally just, it's 3 clicks to do a progress draw or an invoice, and but then everything's calculated automatically as well, so you know exactly what was invoiced and what's remaining, so you have a clear visual view on the financial progress on a job.
Awesome. So I'm the homeowner or the GC or whoever. You send me an invoice and I'm like, I don't want to pay that, or I want to dispute it. I don't want to pay it at all, or I'm going to short pay you on it.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
Two recommendations that we always suggest is, one, have good terms and conditions and clauses on your quotes and invoices. Nowadays with technology, AI, like I literally just would say go on ChatGPT, say like, hey, I'm a electrical contractor. I need terms and conditions, and it'll give you like lawyer quality terms and conditions. Obviously, like read it, review it, but that's a good basic starting point if you don't want to pay like $500-600 to a lawyer. I think you get the same output on one of these AIs. So that's number one, just having good terms and conditions on your quotes and your invoices. Second, when you get approvals, get signatures. Get a signature. Don't rely on a phone call or a conversation. Even if it's a close client, someone you know personally, a friend, family, get a signature. Make that part of your process. That is the simplest way to protect yourself as a contractor, is by having a signature, which makes it a binding agreement. And that holds a lot of weight because there are a lot of contractual disputes that happen very regularly. I speak to people who encounter this every single day. More so in the US, I'll admit, but very regular here in Canada as well. There are contractual disputes. So just having a signature goes a long way if it escalates to that. So those are the two recommendations.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think this is where, completely outside the scope of this talk and probably outside the scope of a podcast, you should definitely consult a lawyer, but understanding your lien rights as a subcontractor. When me and a former partner, when we first started, we were doing a framing job for this guy. I don't know. He's a big shot dude. We did some framing, and he short paid us, or he I don't know. It was like 30 grand or something that he owed
Yeah.
us. And we said to him that we were going to lien the house. We didn't know how any of this worked. We were like, oh, you're going to lien. I don't even think we understood what liening the house meant. And he sort of threatened us and just, he scared us and basically said he was so wealthy and so powerful that he was going to sue us so hard. Like if we did anything, he was going to sue us and we'd lose our houses and all that. And we were so new and we didn't understand. And we were like, holy shit. We knew the guy was really wealthy and he seemed like a bit of a dick. And it was just like, okay, we're not going to do anything. We walked away, right? Which feeds into the cash flow management piece and like what happens if you have to walk away from 30 grand? Can you still make payroll? Which
Yeah.
we couldn't, so I didn't pay myself in order to make payroll. But before you get started, like, make sure, and this is where, and Costa, I don't know if you know how lien legislation works in other jurisdictions. I'm only familiar with how it works in Ontario.
Yeah, I'm not too versed on that whole
Yeah, so
but
my assumption is that it's going to be some form of this kind
yeah.
of across Canada and the US anyways, which is where Project Network's available. You lien a house, so you have to pay for this. You lien a house for essentially for a short payment. You can actually lien a house for anything, right? Don't do it unless they actually owe you money, because it can be worse for you if you just like throw a lien on. What a lien does is it prevents the owner of the property from being able to pull any financing, right? So understanding the project is really key here, because if the project is relying on bank financing or any sort of loan, they won't be able to get their next draw as long as there's a lien against the house. So it can be a very powerful
Yeah.
tool. Now, some cautions here. First off, in Ontario, within 3 months, you have to do what's called perfecting the lien. So you can't just lien and it doesn't just like stay there forever. Within 3 months, so to put a lien on, it's like $750 or something like that. To perfect the lien, you're like into a couple $1,000s, and you need a lawyer to do this. And what perfecting means is you need to basically show proof of what you're claiming, and it starts a court process, right? And so make sure that you have abided by the contract as a subcontractor. Make sure you've done everything that you've said you're going to. Make sure your documentation is correct, right? Because there is a chance that you go through this process and you just get screwed because of something that you didn't do, right? I guess all that to say is it's a little bit complicated, but understand your rights as a subcontractor, right? So if a big bad GC or a big bad homeowner that's like way wealthier than you, and they're driving around in a freaking like G-Wagon, and they're telling you that they're going to sue you if you do anything, just know that if you have abided by all your contractual obligations and they haven't paid you, you can
Yeah.
lien their house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good breakdown. But again, it comes back to, you hope this never happens and you never have to experience this, but it starts with from step one, having terms and conditions and getting a signature. Because if that does happen, that's your like evidence in court, right?
Yeah.
And that holds a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Costa, that, like, I like to keep these 30 to 45 minutes. We're in like we're in a good spot here. I think that's sort of a bite-sized piece for people to listen to. I think we touched on some good stuff there. I really hope that people new to the industry that are first going out on their own really give this a strong listen. If you know anybody that could benefit from this episode, please share it. Costa is going to be building out some courses on Project Network to kind of help dive into this in a lot more detail. So we're going to look forward to seeing some of that stuff. Really touching on sort of like designing these systems and processes. Costa, do you want to give a quick plug, like a more efficient plug of JobTable and why people should get on JobTable just before we wrap this up?
Yeah, no, again, appreciate the conversation here. I feel like we could have kept going and dove into a lot of this. This is a deep topic,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
there's a lot to
absolutely.
touch on. Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. But yeah, if anyone wants to learn more, uptable.com. You can sign up for a 14-day free trial. If you own a construction company, a trades company, and you're just looking for a simple, lean, efficient way to manage your business end to end, check out JobTable. It's simple, it's affordable, and don't a big misconception that we hear every single day. Just speaking to someone before this call, same thing, where a lot of guys think software is meant for big companies. It's the biggest misconception I've ever heard. Right? It's whether you use a software or not, no matter how big or small of a company you are, there's certain things you have to do regardless in your business. Administrative tasks. If you want a job, you have to create a quote, you have to schedule, you have to invoice if you want to get paid. Whether using a software or not, you have to do these things. So JobTable is just a tool that allows you to do those things you have to do regardless in a very simple and affordable way that's going to save you a lot of time and headaches. So it's
Yeah.
not for big companies only. In
Yeah.
fact, most of our clients are small companies with like a few employees.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally. And so just for everybody listening, is JobTable replacing my QuickBooks, or is this in addition to
actually, no,
QuickBooks?
we're integrated to QuickBooks. So most of our clients use QuickBooks as their accounting software, but what we find is a lot of companies outgrow QuickBooks because at the end of the day, QuickBooks, what is it? It's an accounting software. It's not designed and built for a contracting company to go in, manage their business, change orders, extras, timesheets,
Yes.
scheduling. Like there's so many nuanced layers that are required for a contractor. Whereas with QuickBooks, it's a generic accounting software. Whether you're a barber, a baker, a dog walker, you're using QuickBooks. It's the same software. So JobTable, we're a integrated partner with QuickBooks.
Amazing.
So
So
yeah,
so I
they play well together.
yeah, and that's I think that's a really important point. And for everybody listening to understand is that QuickBooks, and I love that you touched on that, Costa, is that QuickBooks is a accounting software. You will always need
Yes.
something like QuickBooks, right? There's QuickBooks, there's Zero, there's a couple others.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like Oracle as you get really big. Um, QuickBooks is accounting. It's bookkeeping, it's accounting. It does not do job management well. There's
No.
functions in there, and I think if you're really new, you can be fooled into thinking that, oh, I can do everything on QuickBooks. QuickBooks Online would be the thing that almost everyone's going to go to now.
Yeah.
Nobody uses desktop anymore. Um, there's features in there, but they suck. Like
Yeah.
they're not good for that. I'll be completely honest. We at Hummingbird, we still use QuickBooks Online for our bookkeeping and our accounting. The only people that operate within it are our bookkeeper and accountant. That's
Exactly.
it,
Yeah.
right? Everything else is done through our separate systems. And we're large and complex, so we built out like a full custom sort of ERP system. But when I looked at, and when you showed me JobTable, Costa, at the building show, oh my God, I could have benefited from
Yeah.
the simplicity of that platform when I first started, because I started and I was just on QBO,
Yeah.
and it seemed like a good idea and it was kind of working. And it wasn't until I got bigger and experienced some of those real issues that I discovered, oh my God, I need another
Yeah.
product here. Like
Yeah.
I need something to actually
Exactly.
manage this stuff. Yeah.
And that's what we say too. You said it too. It's like, with that integration that we have, we say it's like, look, manage your business like in an efficient, proper way. And like you still need QuickBooks. So we're not like every business needs an accounting software, but we say manage your business here properly and like leave QuickBooks to your accountant. Like there's
Yes.
no reason for you to go in and, go into QuickBooks and give yourself a headache.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, can you give like a pricing range? I'm not exactly sure how
Yeah,
your
yeah.
pricing.
Pricing's very simple.
Yeah.
It's $59 per month, which includes 3 users, and then $10 per month for each additional user.
So
That's
that
our
is
pricing.
incredibly affordable.
Yeah.
I will say, parting words of wisdom: if you're running a small contracting firm and you can't afford $60 a month, you need to re-examine what you're doing. So please, if
Yeah.
you don't have a system outside of QBO, if you don't even have QBO,
Yeah.
please look into these systems. Take the courses that are going to be on Project Network in the coming months. Dive into this stuff. This will save you hopefully from a lot of the headaches and the heartaches that I experienced in my early days, and that a lot of small businesses
Yeah.
face.
Couldn't agree more.
Costa, again, thank you so much for the time. I look forward to chatting with you again. I know I'm on your podcast, I think tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think, is it tomorrow or no, next
it's
week?
either, or maybe
Yeah,
maybe it's next week. Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll chat again. I'm sure we're going to talk about different stuff on that
Yeah,
one, but,
sounds good.
either way, we'll chat again. I look forward to chatting with you again, and I look forward to seeing these courses, that we're going to be pumping out,
Awesome.
um, on Project Network. So I really hope everyone keeps their eyes open for that and gives them a watch once they're out.
Yeah, for sure. Really
Costa,
appreciating this was really fun.
amazing.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Cheers.